All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are ready for the continuation of the deposition testimony of Mr. English. Ready to proceed? All right, let's go ahead.
We are back on. The witness is back. Defendants are here represented by counsel, and again, the witness is under oath. Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. English, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to keep my mask on, and if you can't hear me at any point, just let me
Your
know.
Honor, at the end of my question, there was something I'd like to clarify. I don't know if you'll allow it or not, if I could dwell on just a minute.
I would, Mr. Camarillo will have redirect at that point if he wants to clear anything up.
Okay.
And that's fine. If it relates to a question asked by Mr. Rubin, you can explain whatever you need to, but let's move forward to his questioning, and when we get to it, if not, I'm sure Steve will follow up.
Okay.
Mr. English, Mr. Camarillo mentioned Beth Grady as your lawyer.
But yes,
And Ms. Grady is here in court today, right?
yes,
She's sitting behind the prosecution table.
yes,
You notice she was passing notes to the prosecution.
yes.
She doesn't work for the prosecution. Is that correct?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay. She is related to your wife.
Yes,
Your wife's name is Amy.
and yes.
How is Miss Grady related to your wife?
I think they're cousins.
Okay. You've had a horrible couple years. I
Yes,
understand. Health-wise, you're suffering from sarcoidosis, you mentioned,
yes,
which affects your lungs and your heart.
yes,
Stress makes it worse. It exacerbates the symptoms,
yes,
right? And then, of course, nothing can be more stressful than what you went through after the shooting of Ahmaud Arbery,
yes,
right? It affected you personally, correct?
yes,
Would it be fair to say that there were times in the months following the shooting where you yourself felt like you were in danger of being killed?
oh, yeah,
You had someone who actually threatened to bop you,
yes,
and you took that to mean that you wouldn't get to use your house at 220 Satilla Drive. You were going to be killed.
that's what I was told.
You actually had to call 911 on multiple occasions because people were, you felt, harassing you,
Yes.
harassing your property, right?
Yes,
And that caused a great deal of fear in you and your family.
yes.
You weren't sure you were ever going to be able to use your property at Satilla again.
There was a point when I didn't know.
You were scared for yourself, you were scared for your wife, right?
Yes,
You had 2 children below the age of 18, you were scared for them.
yes,
You were even so fearful, you worried about a drive-by shooting as something that was potentially possible.
yes, I've had those thoughts.
And as a result of that, you have taken it upon yourself with the aid of Miss Grady, your wife's cousin, to talk to the press, right?
Yes,
And try to explain your actions, even though you weren't ever charged with anything.
right,
You felt like you yourself were being accused of something you felt like you never did.
yes,
You didn't have anything to do with the shooting of Ahmaud Arbery, right? You were a homeowner whose home just happened to be the home that he entered upon.
yes,
And when this thing blew up, you yourself became harassed, right?
repeat the question, please.
When this thing blew up, when the social media and the national media all of a sudden started covering the case, you yourself became a target
Yes,
of people harassing you. And you needed the help of Ms. Grady to navigate through this terrible ordeal you were going through.
Beth
Yes.
reached out to me, the best I remember, Beth reached out to me and explained that I was going to need some help.
Okay. And you were grateful for that help.
Yes,
And she has, in fact, helped you interact with the press, right?
yes,
Interact with investigators, right?
yes,
Interact with me.
Yes,
right? You remember we had a Zoom call about a year and a half ago,
I don't recall that, but I'm sure we did.
and Ms. Hogue was on the call. Do you remember that?
I don't remember, I don't recall it.
Okay, you don't disagree that we had this?
No, I don't disagree, but I don't recall it.
And your memory, there's some effect from your illness, I take it, on your memory. Is that-
I'm sure everything I went through for the last 6, 7 years affected it.
Okay. Now, Mr. English, you, on the day of the shooting, you found out about the shooting from Diego Perez,
Yes,
okay? And did you talk to Glenn County investigators on that day or within a couple hours of that day?
not that I recall.
Do you know if you talked to them the next day?
I don't remember.
You're not saying you did, you just don't remember?
Exactly.
Okay. Mr. Camarillo brought up the fact that you talked to a couple GBI agents. Do you remember that?
I did, I talked to GBI.
He mentioned one, Seth Hollander. You don't remember that person by name, but you do remember meeting with that GBI agents.
I remember meeting with 2 or 3 different ones.
Okay. You met with one, and I can refresh your memory if you need it. You met with one on May 6, 2020. Does that ring a bell?
No,
If I showed you a transcript and let you read a couple lines, might that refresh your memory?
probably.
May I, Your Honor?
Good.
And I don't want to cause any concern. How do I approach Mr. English?
Why don't you do this? Why don't you just pass it here, and I'll pass it around.
Okay, and what do I need to read?
Yeah, use your glasses. We just read a few lines of turn that cover page over, and there's a few lines of your conversation. See if that refreshes your memory of meeting with Mr. A GBI agent named Hollander.
You want me to read it out loud, or you
No, no, no.
want me to read it?
Just yourself. Just see if it
Okay.
refreshes your memory, because I know it's a long time ago. Does that refresh any recollection, Mr. English?
I remember having some of that conversation with somebody, but I don't know exactly who it was.
Okay. And you wouldn't disagree with me if I told you that conversation took place on May 6, 2020, right?
If it took place, I can't tell you what day.
Okay. Subsequent to that date, you called 911. Do you remember calling on May 8th, 2020?
No,
Do you remember calling about a man in a maroon Jeep with custom wheels walking around your home?
no,
Would looking at the call detail report refresh your memory?
I don't remember a maroon Jeep.
Okay. Do you remember calling again on the 9th and complaining to the dispatcher about people driving up on your property and asking the Glenn County Police to check on your property on the 9th?
I know the day of one of the protests, some people went in the yard with a motorcycle and they cut some donuts. And then there was some people walked up to the front door and looking in the windows.
Did you call 911 once you noticed that they were on your property?
I may have, I don't remember for sure.
And you also, in fact, had a recording of you holding your cell phone, and on your cell phone, you were watching the protests in your neighborhood. Do you remember that?
No, I'm not gonna say I did, but I don't remember.
You remember watching the protests in your neighborhood?
I watched them walk by.
In Satilla Shores, you were watching while they walked by, and this is when the man said you're going to be bopped.
Yes, that particular day, I had HVAC guys there, and they was going to be paid when they got through, so me and my son stayed in the backyard away from the protest.
It's pretty frightening.
Sir,
It was pretty frightening.
I couldn't
It
understand.
was pretty frightening.
Yes, yes.
Do you recall calling the police again when trespassers were turning water on and off on your property?
I don't remember it. I mean, I don't remember having any issues with the water, not that I know of.
With looking at your call detail report, refresh your memory?
Yeah. If you ask me that, I'm gonna get me look at that.
Only if it would help refresh your memory.
It won't help. I can't remember. I apologize.
That's okay. When did Miss Grady call you to talk to you about helping you?
I don't even remember what brought it about. I don't know if she saw it on TV. I don't know how she found out about it or what brought that on.
Well, after your first meeting with the GBI, you had a second meeting with Agent Sechrist on the 15th of May, correct? She was with you at that meeting, right?
She was with me at one meeting, yeah.
Okay.
I think that was the meeting, maybe if I remember right, that they were requesting mine and my wife's phones, and maybe she was supposed to download the information that was supposed to relate to this rather than taking all the information.
And in that meeting with Agent Sechrist is where you walked through with the agent where your boat was at different times. Does that ring a bell?
I could have. I mean, I've told so many people the story. I don't remember that.
Okay. Well, let's go back then to the beginning of all of this for you.
Okay.
You testified earlier that you bought the property, I think, 4 or 5 years ago.
Somewhere on
And about a year later after that, you started building your dream house, your vacation house on Satilla Drive.
there. Right.
You're going to live on the water, or at least have use of a house on the water, Satilla River, and enjoy that as you got a little bit older. I know your health was a concern at that point, right?
Yes.
Initially, you had, I think you said 2 cameras out there, or 3 cameras out there?
They come in a bundle. I can't remember if the first bundle had 5 or 3. I can't remember, but they come in bundles. And I had either, I want to say there was only 3 of them that we could get connection off of.
Okay. Initially, you had a camera on the dock, right?
Yes.
Now, we watched some surveillance video earlier where we saw an intruder walking across the metal plank. Is that the camera that was initially up?
Yes.
Okay, so that's number 1.
Yes.
And I think you said earlier that you had a second camera on the back of your house. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Let me show you. Photograph that I'm marking as Travis McMichael exhibit number 1, okay?
Okay.
May I approach?
I think it was the easiest way. I thought it would be doing this, but honestly, with me getting involved in it, it may be easier if you could just stay as far from the witness as possible and just hand it to
look at Travis McMichael, exhibit number 1. Try to orient yourself. I use your red porta potty to do it. Does that, you understand what you're looking at in that photograph?
Yes,
Okay, could you tell us what you're looking at?
it's an area of, my property and adjacent properties around
And do you see your particular property on there?
it. Yes,
Does it appear to be a fair and accurate representation of your property?
yes.
Okay, Your Honor, I would at this point tender Travis McMichael, exhibit number 1.
Go careful.
Mr. English, I'm going to hand you a pen. Again, I don't want to do anything that's going to upset you if you have a pen. And do you have a pen?
No,
Can I hand you a pen?
do what?
Can I hand you a pen?
Yes.
Okay.
There's no document camera in this courtroom, is there?
Like an Elmo?
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of. Mr. English, would you mark on that photograph, directly on it, where the camera for the backyard was and for the dock? I know the dock's not shown because there's a metal roof, but approximately where it would be.
No, the one on the back of the house is the best of my recollection.
The one on the back of the house?
Yes.
Mhm. You just hang on to that pen if you want, just for now, anyway. And so, and I'll help, you marked if you're looking at the back of your house from the dock, the far left corner of your house, right?
Sir,
If you're looking at the back of your house from the dock,
far left corner.
far left corner and on the dock, on the left-hand side of the dock.
Yes,
You testified that you put those cameras up because of concerns about liability,
partially liability.
right? I mean, Kenny Wade, your next-door neighbor, had told you about kids coming around, and you thought it would be a good idea. It was dangerous down by the dock. It would be good to have a couple cameras.
Right,
Not only that, but you did have valuables at your house at that point, right?
yes,
And so cameras, of course, would help protect you from any intruders that were stealing things off your property.
yes,
And that was another reason to have a camera.
yes,
Okay. Eventually, and we'll talk about it in a little bit more detail, but eventually you added 7 more cameras?
5 or 7, I don't, like, again, I don't remember, it was, they come in bundles and I added them, and some of them we didn't even use, I don't think, I think we had a couple we didn't even use, I'm not sure.
Okay. You had 3 cameras in the front of your house, is that true?
Yes,
You had 1 camera in the garage.
yes,
You had 1 camera in your living room.
yes,
You had 2 cameras on the back of the house
right corner, left corner, yes,
and 2 at the dock.
yes,
Those last bunch of cameras you installed in November after the white couple came in and then the black male came into your house, correct?
I don't remember exactly what day it was.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. English, I'm handing you what's been marked as Travis McMichael exhibit number 2, if you'll look at that for a second. Do you recognize that?
Do I?
Do you recognize that photograph?
Oh, yeah,
What do you recognize it to be?
that's my house.
Okay, is that a fair and accurate representation of your house?
Yeah,
As it existed back in May of 2020?
couldn't tell you what it looked like in May of 2020.
Okay, fair enough. Your Honor, at this point, I would tender into evidence Travis McMichael exhibit number 2.
information about timing of when that photograph was taken? If possible.
Mr. English,
Who took the photograph?
that photograph was taken by my investigator.
Do you have a general date?
It would have been in May of 2020, May or June of 2020.
See if he agrees or disagrees whether that would be what it looked like at or about that time.
Okay. Mr. English, does that sound accurate, that photo depicts what your house looked like in May or June of 2020?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
At the stage, I couldn't, I know that's my house, but I couldn't tell you what stage it was in at that point.
Does that photograph allow you to depict on the front of the house where your cameras were located?
Yeah,
Your Honor, I would tender that photograph, Travis McMichael number 2, for the purpose of allowing Mr. English.
Let him mark it, and then give your tender. And then what you're tendering is just the locations of the camera. It doesn't have anything to do with the house.
Okay. All right. Using your pen, Mr. English, will you mark on that photograph where your cameras were located? Your Honor, at this point, I would tender to evidence Travis McMichael exhibit number 2 to show where the cameras were located as depicted in the photograph.
No objection, Judge, and I know he'll have another witness, they'll be able to tender the date that was taken.
Well, at this point, it's admitted for that purpose, for the location of the cameras.
Mr. English, you noted on here with your black circles 3 cameras in the front of the house. One by the RV boat garage facing the house, the far left-hand corner, right?
yeah,
One on the right-hand side of the 2-car garage, right?
yes.
And then one near your front door.
The one near the front door, I probably marked in the wrong location. It should be on the right-hand, very right corner of the house.
Should be further over.
Yeah, those cameras was moved a time or two. When we was doing construction, doing the siding, they had to be taken down and put them back up. And I think I may have even at one point added an extra one at the front.
So you might have had actually 4 at one time.
No, I don't think it was 4. There would have been, probably wouldn't have been more than 3 the whole time.
Okay, but the one that's depicted on the right-hand side might have been even further to the right at different times.
Right.
Okay, all right,
To the best I recall.
fair enough. In going through all the videos that you watched today, cameras at the dock, cameras in the back of the house, cameras in the front of the house, at no point do you see anyone stealing any items, right?
Still anything?
Correct. At no point do you see someone carrying out of your house items that belong to you.
No.
And yet you know that items are missing from the boat that was parked in your house, right?
Yes. Well, now, I don't know for sure if it was in the house when it happened. I don't have video, and at one point I assumed that it happened at the house, but I can say it for sure happened at the house.
And as we sit here today, you don't know where the items were taken or who took them.
No.
But at the time, and I'm talking about October, November, December 2019, January and February of 2020, you knew items were taken, you knew the boat had been parked in the house, correct?
I knew the boat had been at the house at one point, but I had also moved it back into the Douglas multiple times.
Right. But you knew the items were taken, and you knew the boat had been parked at the house, correct?
At one time it had, but I don't know if the items were taken while it was at the house.
But that's not what you told the police, is it?
I don't know that.
Okay, we're gonna walk through it then.
Okay.
The state showed you a video of children coming into your yard during the daytime and taking some plywood.
Yes.
Are those Subi Lawrence's kids, do you know?
Is it what?
Are they Subi Lawrence's kids?
Yes.
Okay, so Subi
Looking
Lawrence,
at the video, I assumed that that's what she is.
and you know Subi as the woman who lives across the street, who has 2 boys, right?
Or 3,
Or 3 boys?
I think so.
Okay. When did you meet Subi?
I can't recall exactly when. As already was stated, there are multiple mailboxes there. One of those mailboxes is hers, and when she stopped to check the mail in the evening, one evening, I think she may have introduced herself, but I think that's how it come about.
But the video depicting the boys coming onto your property, that's not the first time you saw people coming on your property, right?
Probably not, I don't
The
remember.
first time you saw someone coming on the property was at night, and it was that first 911 phone call.
Yes, on video, yes.
Okay. You didn't have any problem with those boys coming on, right?
No,
It's daytime, and boys will be boys.
I knew who they was.
Better for them to be playing in the street, like you said, than on video games.
That's the way I feel about it.
You didn't have a problem with gawkers in the neighborhood coming to look at your new house, right?
Repeat that,
You didn't have a problem with gawkers in the neighborhood.
doctors,
Let me use a different word. People who were curious about your new construction. As long as it was daytime and they were just not hurting anything, you were okay with it.
not really okay with it, because the time we live in, the liability is so great, and there's so many attorneys looking for a liability suit. So I really don't welcome it, but it's not out of the ordinary.
Kind of comes with the territory of building a house.
Yes,
And as a contractor, as you testified, that's fairly common.
yes,
It's different when someone comes on your property at night.
yes,
It's scarier.
yes,
You don't know why they're there, right?
right,
You don't know what they want.
no,
You don't know if your valuables will still be there in the morning when you come to your house.
right.
It's pretty scary. Let's go to October 25th, 2019. That's the first time you called 911 because of something you saw on your cameras, correct?
The best I remember, I'm not sure about the dates.
That's the first time you actually interacted with Officer Rash. Is that true?
I'm not sure exactly when me and Rash had our first conversation.